What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another match review as Spurs lost by 2-1 at St James's Park yesterday, which you've got to say probably our best performance at St James's Park for a long time. Last couple of years we got absolutely schmeiced in both appearances, but I felt like yesterday was a bit of a similar story to the Leicester game, but against a much better opposition where we controlled the majority of the game. We let them in silly situations and we just didn't take our chances.
Yeah, and that's the big frustration, is that there's a lot of positives to take from the performance. And I think if you just saw the performance on just in that context, and I asked you, would you have taken that performance before the game, before knowing the result, you probably would have said, yeah, I would have taken that kind of performance, because going to Newcastle is always difficult, regardless of the few injuries they have and what form they're on. They're always going to have a game plan to come up against us, and they're always going to have really good players. But the frustration is, both occasions we conceded goals was when in our best moments. In the first half, you probably have to say Newcastle started the stronger for the opening 10-15 minutes, but once Spurs took control of the game, there was only one side who looked like they was going to score. We were the ones having the shots on target, we were the ones putting Newcastle under pressure, and we got hit with a sucker punch, not concentrating from a throw-in, and bam, it's 1-0 Newcastle in a flash. I think it was one of those where you don't even think there's any danger, and I'm just looking up the screen and all of a sudden it's 1-0 out of nowhere. Yeah. We did very well in the second half.
Great finish by Harvey Barnes.
Yeah, brilliant, but you look, no one's picking him up. There's about 5 defenders in there, no one picking him up. We did so well to get back in the game. We'll talk about the substitutions and stuff, but we did really well to take re-control of the game in that second half. Got back in the game deservedly so, 1-1, and again, only looked like one team was going to go and win it, and bam, sucker punch out of nowhere, and it's 2-1 Newcastle. And we couldn't obviously get their equaliser, which was really frustrating. So it's one which is really tough to take, just because of, I think, how well we played. But it's also one which highlighted our flaws as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we can't be so weak in defence, especially when you're on top for so long in the game. And you've got to have a bit more cutting edge about you. You've got to take your chances. You've got to be clinical. And it's a common theme now in this season. 3 games gone. Yeah, I know we were clinical against Everton, but Everton were definitely willing participants. But definitely in the 2 away games now, there are big similarities of both games, both of different level of opposition. So it is worrying for me, but I think, like, for me as well, I am seeing a lot of positives in these opening 3 games of the season. And I feel like people are saying, like, oh, it's the same old story as last season, but I don't think that's true. I know in the same old story last year of not taking our chances, but I feel like the performance level, particularly from the second half of the season to now, you can see a clear difference.
And I think we're conceding less chances. I think that's fair to say. Just even look back at Newcastle last season, the amount of chances we conceded in that game, even though we dominated possession. They battered us 4-0, and they had a lot of chance on the counter. Yesterday, they were limited. They had those 2 chances. I remember Jacob Murphy had a chance, but other than that, it was few and far between in terms of actual. How many times did Vicario really get tested? Not too many. Whereas we were definitely looking to break them down a lot more. Obviously, we also did struggle, I feel, to create real clear-cut chances, but we were the ones in the ascendancy. We were the ones putting them under pressure, and we dominated them. And it's just a shame. I do think it was Solanke and Richarlison were massive misses yesterday. That especially in those last 20 minutes when we were 2-1 down, when they're playing in that low block, and we just didn't have that physical threat in the box. Then we were definitely hampered by that, I felt.
Yeah, and I felt like Brennan Johnson in the second half was brilliant. By the way, he came on. He's come under a lot of criticism by us, by a lot of Spurs fans, saying he hasn't been good enough. Well, he's come on yesterday and he was probably our best player on the pitch. He was the one consistently trying to attack down that right-hand side. He was actually getting a lot of good crosses in the box, but no one was there at the time. And that's what you're saying about Solanke and Richarlison. Exactly. We just lacked that presence in the box. And I felt like more Solanke. If Solanke was there, I do think we go on and win that game.
Yeah, I think a big problem was in the first half, we had Decky in the false 9, which we were called for, and we had Sarr next to Maddison for a bit more bite in the midfield, Son out on the left, and Odegaard on the right. I felt like Odegaard didn't look as comfortable on the right, I have to say. He wasn't able to take on his man as much, and wasn't looking as threatening. But I thought Decky in the 9 wasn't looking too bad. I thought Sarr actually was looking all right, but he had a few long-range efforts, but we still lacked that kind of real quality in the centre with him there. Son on the left was doing okay. But I felt like we massively improved once we dropped Decky into the midfield, put Brennan Johnson on the right, Odobert on the left. Odobert looked a lot better on the left. Brennan Johnson changed the game on the right-hand side as well. He was absolutely fantastic. I think Decky was getting a lot more involved. And I thought, actually, what the big thing about having Decky there is it kind of unlocked Maddison a bit as well. Maddison was all of a sudden getting shots off. He was, all of a sudden, they gave him another threat to deal with. And they struggled to contain both Decky and Maddison. Now, the problem with that, with what we did in the second half, is we put Son up front. And I think it might have worked at 1-1, but as soon as we went to 2-1, having Son up front just wasn't going to work because they sat in their low block, they clogged up the penalty area, and Son becomes, when he's in the 9...
We needed someone really physical up
yeah,
there.
he becomes ineffective. I felt like at 1-1 when the game's open, when Newcastle were leaving a tiny bit of space because they want to get that, they want to take the lead. I felt like, I don't think Son was doing too much, but we always felt like he maybe could have been a bit of a threat. But I felt like as soon as it went 2-1, it was that from that point. So we kind of needed Decky in the 9, and we needed him in midfield at the same time, and that's where we were hampered by not having Solanke and Richarlison. That was a massive shame. So I felt like in terms of what Ange was trying to do tactically, I understood it. I felt like it was a massive shame those two players were missing because he couldn't really get Decky in midfield and up front. So he had to kind of compromise, and he tried to make it work, but couldn't get it to do so, unfortunately.
I want to talk about Cuti Romero because we seem to be criticising him, praising him, criticising, praising him, but I did feel like for both goals he was really poor, and he should be doing a lot better in terms of, it's just the nature of his game though, isn't it? Get caught up the field because of how aggressive he actually is, but that's 2 away games in a row now where, he's coming under a bit of criticism.
Well, definitely the second goal, he switched off, allows Murphy to get a run on him. Udogie isn't fast enough to catch up on him as well. He's playing a very aggressive high line, is Cuti Romero. Actually, to be fair, for the second goal, yes, Romero gets caught out, but if you actually look at the replay, Dragoshin is the one keeping him onside. If Dragoshin's level with all the other defenders, Murphy would have been off. So I think Dragoshin maybe has to come under a bit of criticism for, in that instance, for maybe dropping a bit deeper. And I do wonder whether he dropped a couple yards deeper because he knows he doesn't have the pace of Van de Ven, and I wonder if that was playing on his mind. I think I must drop a bit. But what I have to say about Dragoshin is I thought he had a fantastic game, and everyone was worried about him not worried about him specifically, worried about not having Van de Ven, but he was phenomenal, I thought, and now he really impressed me. He made some brilliant challenges on Isaac.
Isaac in the box.
Yeah, running back. That was Van de Ven-esque, you could probably say. I thought in the box as well, doing some really good stuff, heading the balls away, clearances. I was actually quite impressed with him, and I think Ange made the right decision playing him on the right and Romero on the left. I think Dragoshin looked a lot more comfortable. Romero looked less comfortable. I think he looked more comfortable than Dragoshin usually does on that side. So I think that was the right decision. In terms of the first goal, I think a few people switched off. There's about 5 defenders in there with only Isaac. Only Isaac they're picking up. Everyone's leaving Barnes completely free. I don't know if Cuti Romero specifically comes under criticism. I think the Basuma definitely does, from what I can see. I think Dragoshin was trying to block the cross, but there was already a defender out there trying to block it as well. So he ends up marking no one. But this is what I've been saying about our rest defence, about our defending when it's our turn to kind of sit a bit deeper and defend situations. I just feel like a lot of the time we're all over the place, and I think yesterday was another case. The thing is, we weren't in that situation a lot, so that's a positive that we're kind of dominating so much that we don't have to do too much defending. But the problem is when we do, we're just always going to leave ourselves open to conceding soft goals like we did yesterday, because I feel like we just don't work enough in those situations. We work so much on being on the ball, breaking teams down, being in possession, which I guess gets us performances like yesterday where we are dominating, we are having 80-70% possession, and we are on the front foot, and that's what we want to be. And if we do take our chances again, we probably come away with at least a point yesterday. But this is what I was saying after the Leicester game. Like, I feel like these soft goals are not going to stop, and it's about it. I think this season is going to be about, can we just make the most out of when we're on top and when we have a lot of possession, which we will do in most games. And a lot of the times when we do concede those soft goals, hopefully it kind of leads to a 3-1 win or a 4-1 win rather than a result like yesterday.
It's just not sustainable. It's just not sustainable to play like that in the Premier League with the quality that you're coming up against. Like, we're letting all of our hard work in all these games go out the window because we're dominating games, we're creating chances, we're not putting them away, and then we're getting sucker punched up the other way. We need to find solutions where we can defend in a better manner, because this is just going to keep happening. We're just going to keep throwing points and throwing results out the window.
I'm going to assume that Ange's solution is just take your chances. That's going to be his solution, and it's going to be on the players. And I think he's going to live and die by that. And if we can't make the most out of the chances we create, Ange's going to have to take responsibility for that. Because I honestly think, from what I've seen so far this season, first of all, I'm really happy with how we've played in the first 3 games. I do think 4 points is probably, I think Andrew's absolutely right in my opinion. I think 4 points is probably not all we deserve from these opening 3 games. We should probably be on at least 7, I would say. Maybe 9 out of 9 is a bit too much, but I would say at least 7 points in these first 3 games would be a fair return for how we've played.
I think we've deserved the win in all 3 of our games.
I would say we've deserved the win, but I think considering we keep conceding soft goals, I would say I wouldn't argue too much if we got a draw at Newcastle and 2 wins in the other 2 games. So I would say like 7 points probably is what I would deserve from these first 3 games. And if we continue to play like we are, I do think the results will come, and I do think things will even themselves out. But at the moment, we just keep getting sucker punched, and we're not. Solanke Richarlison's been injured for the last 2 games as well, which is obviously that hasn't helped the situation. I do believe that if we continue to play this way, the results will be good, and we will find ourselves in a good way. But at the moment, it is very frustrating in the fact that we keep conceding those soft goals, especially when we're on top. Especially, same with Leicester, by the way. It was in our best moment. I remember just before Leicester scored, Solanke just missed a chance, and Bentancur just missed a really good chance, and then bam, Leicester score. Same with this one. Brennan just had a couple of opportunities. We were well on top. We were the ones in the ascendancy, and out of nothing, bam, they score and take themselves 2-1 up. So if we can prevent these sucker punches from happening, if we can take the chances when we're having them rather than allowing the opposition to sucker punch us, then it's going to stand us in good stead. But as I say, you look at Arsenal, you look at Man City. I really don't believe. I think they're geared much more in a way where then they're trying to stop those soft goals being conceded, and we're not doing as good as effort as them.
To be fair, you do have seen from Man City a couple of times over the course of this season already in the first 3 games how they're very susceptible to the counter-attack, and teams can hurt them. They just haven't hurt them. So I don't think Arsenal are like that, but I do think Man City have been counted on quite a few times this season.
I think they've been counted on a bit. Well, first of all, Arsenal have conceded a few chances, but to be fair, but I would say City, to be fair, they have been sucker punched. You could argue that West Ham game they were sucker punched, but then they went and won 3-1. Same with Ipswich, they were sucker punched.
The difference about these teams is they take their chances,
and that's what I'm saying. So I think, but I also do think they have a better rest defence than we do. I feel like.
But they've also been in a settled system for a lot longer than us.
That's also true. I feel like though when they're in those periods of the game where, all right, it's time for us to sit back a bit, soak up a bit of pressure and defend, they're a lot better at doing that than we are right now. I feel like we're still defensively just all over the place in those situations. Yes, we get counted on, but I actually feel like in those situations, it does happen a bit, we get counted on, but I feel a lot more comfortable when we're being counted on than when we're being put under pressure.
When we're getting
yeah, exactly. When we're getting attacked, and the opposition are getting men forward, and all of a sudden we're having to sustain pressure.
We literally don't know what to do with ourselves.
That's a problem. But the thing is, we're not in those situations that much, and if we continue to
1 or 2 times is enough, because 1 or 2 times where it's like a high percentage that they're going to score from these situations. That's the problem.
That is true, but if we can get those situations where the percentage is, we can decrease those percentages even a bit, then I think that can make a big difference.
It's like at the moment, like we need 5 or 6 chances to score, and the opposition need 1.
Yeah,
that's what it feels like at the moment,
and
that's a big problem.
Yeah, I mean it's a problem, and Andrew's going to have to, as I say, Andrew's going to live and die by whether he can sort that out. Because as much as I'm giving him grace, and I think we've been really good in the first 3 games, at the end of the day, 4 points. If I told you 4 points in these first 3 games at the beginning of the season, you wouldn't have taken it. I think it's a bit disappointing return from the first 3 games. We've got Arsenal coming up next. If we don't get a good result in that game, he's going to come under increasing pressure.
I'll tell you what, though, there was one thing I was looking at yesterday in terms of the reaction. You know, we spoke about that before the game. If we go 1-0 down, I want to see the reaction from these players and see how, and we don't fall down, we don't open our asses for them. And I don't think we did that yesterday. And I feel like we went 1-0 down and we kept with it. We kept with the same mentality. We were still dominating the ball, dominating possession and looking to score. So I was happy from that aspect. So maybe that's a little bit of growth in the team that we saw from Leicester. But also, you got to look at the reality where, however dominating we've been over these two away games, the XG still very similar between the two sides, and that's also a cause of concern.
Yeah, and I think that leads to, because look at Vardy's goal, how high an XG that was. Look at Isaac's goal, how high of an XG probably that was. That was probably 0.9 or something.
And we can't create these big quality chances.
And that's a problem. And that's the thing, when teams are going to come up against us, they're going to make it more difficult for us to break them down, and they're going to make it more difficult to create those high XG chances. And whereas when teams attack us, a lot of the time we're going to be a lot more open. So if they do get in on us, the chances of them creating a high quality chance is going to be more. So that's the reason for it. I think the logic behind it is, if we can just restrict them to 1 or 2 a game, and hopefully they miss one of them, and
rely on luck, basically.
I wouldn't say that. I think we're trying to control the game, and I think we're relying on ourselves. We want to rely on ourselves to do it, and I think we're relying on ourselves to put away these chances. I don't think it's luck whether we put our chances away or not. It's quality. It's luck whether the opposition missed 1 or 2 high quality chances. Yes, but I think we're more relying on ourselves to put the chances away. In the first 2 away games, I should say, hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it won't happen, but it doesn't mean it will either, and that's the big question at the moment.
Yeah, we just need to find that killer instinct, that cutting edge. You know, as Conte used to say, we need to smell the blood of the opponent, and we're just not doing that. Like, we're camping out. We had Newcastle camped in their own half for pretty much the majority of that game yesterday, and still they're creating a higher XG than us.
But I do think Solanke will help with that.
Yeah, I agree.
I said before the game, I think Solanke would have made a big difference in this game.
And I think that'll be the same against the Arsenal game. I'm actually going into the Arsenal game in a weird way after that Newcastle game, more positive than I did beforehand.
But it's going to be very, very interesting what Ange decides now, because
especially without Declan Rice.
But it's going to be very interesting because we look so much better with Maddison next to Decky, and what that means for Sarr and Bentancur going forward. Because even in this game, Newcastle away, you know, you look at their midfield, Joe Linton, Guimaraes, I think Longstaff, Tonali came on. You would have thought, oh, you need a bit of legs in there to kind of combat that. But actually, we looked a lot better when Kulusevski came on next to Maddison. And we just had that little bit of extra quality in the centre to help deal with Newcastle.
Helps us keep the ball
and sustain pressure on the opposition. Yeah. And exactly, it stops it coming back at us. It came back at us a bit more in the first half, but in the second half, it barely did, apart from that one opportunity.
Even in the first half, you know, we were heavily dominant, and I really liked the way we were pressing high up the pitch. We just kept winning the ball back time and time again. And it's just such a shame, after all these positives, we're sitting here with only 4 points after 3 games. Yeah. It really is. But, you know, big games ahead. North London derby up next. A nice international break as well, which probably come at the right time or the wrong time. Probably about the wrong time. You just want to get out there and play again after these results and these performances. So, yeah, we move on. We move on. It is a hard one to take after, you know, how much we enjoyed watching the game. It was an entertaining game. Spurs put on a bit of a show. We just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, which was just an unfortunate event, like it was first game of the season. So
I think there's more positives and negatives to take. I think.
Yeah, I hope so. But let me know your thoughts on the game. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, Spurs.